been as far as your experience and how your life led you towards mediumship.
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about that. Well, I was blessed to grow up in a spiritualist atmosphere. Um, on my dad's side of the family, it goes back 4 generations in spiritualism. My grandmother was a trance medium. My great grandmother was a physical medium, and she also did some trance work. And then it goes back even further. My family, at some point or some way or another, was involved in the spiritualist movement. And when I talk about spiritualism, I'm talking about the religion of modern spiritualism that was founded in upstate New York in 1848. And basically, it is a religion that teaches the science, philosophy, and religion of continuous life. So the major tenet of spiritualism is that, life is forever. We never cease to exist, and that the personal identity of every individual continues after the change called death. And that communication with the so-called dead is possible. Not only is it possible, it's a scientific fact proven by the phenomena of spiritualism. So that's the type of background that I grew up around. I attended my first seance at the age of 8. And my grandmother took me under her wing shortly thereafter, and we began learning to meditate and learning to open oneself up to the subtle vibrations of the spirit world, because a medium basically is an individual whose organism is sensitive to vibrations from the spirit world. Well, mediumship is wholly natural. It is not a supernatural gift. It is a natural gift, and it is innate in every individual on the face of the planet. There are some people that will say it is not. I know, or I believe it is, and in my experience, I have seen where people have demonstrated some form of mediumship to greater or lesser degrees. So, from the age of 8 onward, I learned to quiet my mind, to quiet my body, to meditate, to get to that place inside of myself to where I could shut down what was going on in the outside world and really listen to the voice of spirit, which is on the inside. And so I just began to practice.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah, go ahead.
When you talk about the inside, and I keep hearing the inside, do you mean like inside of an organ? Are we talking about like the inside, I don't know, like of a pimple? Like, what are we talking about?
Well, I'm talking about like that space inside. I want to use it again. I'm talking about that mental world that is present within each individual. So, it's the places where thoughts happen. It is also the place where that internal dialogue happens. I don't know if you do it, but I know I do it all the time, where I'm like, let's see here, what am I going to do today? Well, at greater and lesser degrees, as we go deeper into a meditative state and we learn to shut out outside influences, shut out whatever's going on around us or whatever seems to be going on around us, and we can kind of withdraw into that inner chamber of ourselves, then that's where the magic of mediumship happens.
That's interesting that you say that, because just as you were talking about that, I don't know if you have seen a TV show called Stranger Things, but have you seen it? Because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay, so I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've seen the first season, and I believe I am on episode 3 of Stranger Things. I would probably be done or caught up with it by now, but it's turned into one of those shows where I have to watch with my boyfriend. Otherwise, there's problems. So
yeah, I know what that's about. Yeah, like I can't finish watching right now. What was it that we were watching? I think we were watching that movie with and she's Australian. she just lost a ton of weight too. It's a movie called Senior Year.
Okay.
She was in Pitch Perfect. What is her name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Amy. Fat Amy.
Fat Amy, yeah. She's no longer Fat Amy though.
Yeah.
She like lost tons of weight. She looks great. Either way, for me, she looked great. But you know, whatever makes her happy.
Exactly.
Yeah, but she like I couldn't finish watching that, so you know I walked off and I started doing chores. But my wife was able to finish it. I didn't say nothing, but I was like, because then later on it's gonna come up when we're out and about. Oh yeah, well you finished Senior Year with Fat Amy, and I didn't get to watch it. And then the payback is hard, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I just kind of steer clear of it now. So when he's around and we want to grab an episode or two, then we grab one. And it's usually dependent on how long I can stay awake because I'm old now. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So old people go to sleep.
Yeah, I mean it's really kind of terrible. Like 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm ready for bed.
You're having a party in your dream.
Exactly.
No hangover when you wake up, though.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, so as far as so for the medium, can you talk about like the first time you actually did a seance?
Well, so a seance where I was leading it as the medium in charge.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know exactly when my first one was. Okay, because I've been doing public mediumship since 2005. That's when I first started doing public mediumship. And in the spiritualist church, we have what is known as platform demonstrations. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The mediums are on a platform. And they demonstrate the phenomena of mediumship. So that might happen within a spiritualist church service. That might happen, outside of an official service called an all-message service, where mediums, instead of having like a regular church service, it would be a point in time where the mediums could almost do like John Edwards, if you're kind of familiar with that reference, like on television where John Edwards would do readings, Teresa Caputo, like when she does open like readings with a bunch of people, not just one person. Technically, a seance, it comes from the French word meaning sitting. So anytime I actually go into a sitting with people, that is actually a seance by definition. Now, I know that when we talk about seances, it conjures up in our mind these images of Victorian, parlors that are dimly lit, and everybody's around a circle table, and and lots of spooky stuff is going on. So I have done things like that as well, like what you and your wife were present for. I believe my first one was probably around 2005, 2006. But that's never been my major source of work. Most of my mediumship work has been done across the platform of a spiritualist church or one-on-one sessions with clients.
Is there anything that you've had so far that you're like that the energy just kind of blew you away? Like, I can't believe that's just happened.
Oh, it happens every single time. Honestly, I've been doing it since 2005 professionally, and then been around spiritualism since 8 years old. So, being around spiritualism since 8 years old, I have seen stuff like this for 31 years. And it never ceases to amaze me. I am always taken aback by what Spirit does, by what Spirit reveals, by what Spirit says. I think some of my most interesting elements of mediumship actually have nothing to do with speaking to to human spirits, but speaking to divinities that have come through, that have revealed themselves in seance or in mediumship sessions. A story kind of, I think, is interesting. When I first moved to Austin in 2004, I had a client, and I went to this client's house, and as soon as I drove up to the front of her home, I experienced probably one of the most intense headaches that I ever had. And as I sat in my car, I thought, I'm just going to breathe just a second and try to get past this. And it wasn't going away. So I went ahead and got out of my car and began to walk up the stairs. And as I began to walk up the stairs, because her house was kind of on an incline, as I was walking up the stairs, my head was hurting so much. I just could not. And I thought, as soon as I reach the door, I'm going to tell her, I am so sorry. I'm going to refund you. You know, I just can't do this today. An illness just kind of came on me. I finally made it to the door, and ever so weakly just knocked on the door, at which point in time she opened the door and said, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you, come in." And as she invited me in, it was like the vice grip that was on my head was loose. So I thought, that is so strange. I've never experienced this before. So I went ahead and went into her home, and as we began to go into the session, I was very aware of this brilliantly white, light woman. It was a brilliant white gold shimmering light that was in the corner of her home, and she was standing there so beautifully. And I began to explain to this woman what I was seeing, and she wasn't saying anything, so I kind of opened my eyes to kind of see if I was touching anything, and she was crying. And she told me that I had explained her goddess in such great detail, and that was the very first time that I had ever had any interaction with a deity. Mostly in spiritualism, God was some abstract concept out here. It wasn't, you didn't refer to God as he or she, it was it. This energy that just pervades everything. Mm-hmm. That was the spiritualist understanding. And so our idea of touching in with God out there somewhere was not really an idea that we had. It was strictly reaching out to spirit to talk to, ancestors and loved ones and things like that on the spirit side of life. But I believe that one instance that happened in Austin really solidified my path as a witch, my path as a medium, and then my understanding that there are divine individuals and entities out there in the universe, and you can touch in with them the same way you would do to touch in with grandma or something.
Wow, that is amazing. So when you were saying earlier that we all have that capability of that communication, a lot of the time, do you think that maybe technology has suppressed that ability?
I think that in the early days of the spiritualist movement, you can read some amazing books from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And there were so many amazing mediums that came out of the early movement. And there are different forms of phenomenon. There are different forms of mediumship. There is mental, which is what I practice mostly, but there's also physical mediumship where the spirits manipulate the physical world around the medium and cause physical phenomena to happen, like lights and levitations and orbs and things like that. And I have sat in physical mediumship seances. They are amazing. I have several stories to share about that. But to answer your question, yes, I do believe that with the increased amount of technology and the ever-pervasiveness in our lives of doing something, watching something, listening to something, all of that, we do not give our minds the opportunity to disconnect from outside stuff and to come into those inner chambers of the heart. You know, to come in and withdraw and to go into meditation and to say, here I am, Spirit, I'm listening. But in those days, when they didn't have much to do, there was a lot more time for that. And I believe in order for us to have good mediums today, we've got to find a balance to where we can withdraw from the modern world and kind of get into a place where we can listen to that other world. Because the spirit world is not going to scream at you. The spirit world is going to speak in very low, slow tones. And the only way that you can hear it is to allow yourself the space to get into that space to hear what the spirit world is saying.
Amazing. That it actually, I was trying to picture and do that, and I feel like I know what you're talking about as far as like disconnecting from the modern world or the world, today's world, or whatever present moment you're in general, to disconnect from those energies in order to be able to connect. It kind of feels like you're an aux cord and you're connecting to different, or maybe like a radio, different channels.
Yeah, I think more like a radio is, I would say mediumship is more like that, because the medium, remember I said, is an individual whose organism or their body, their whole physical being is sensitive to vibrations from the spirit world. And so kind of like a radio antenna, it's sensitive to radio waves. And so there'll be some nights when it's very clear out and things like that, that you can get a radio station way far away, right? Mm-hmm. And then there'll be other nights where you won't be able to hear this radio station that's just down the road. It depends on a lot of factors, and mediumship is the same way. There is not an instance as a medium that we sit down where sometimes we don't receive anything. That happens a lot, and usually it's because the medium is in the way of the communication. They get in their own way. And I know for me, when I have not really heard right or connected right, the connection was not the fault of the spirit world. It was my fault, because I had not lined up my vibrations well enough to touch in with their vibration. Like, our vibration has to meet, and the spirit world is constant. They have a constant vibration. In our world, the vibrations go up and down depending on a lot of things, depending on the stress of our life at the moment, mm-hmm. depending on, if we've meditated in a while, depending on if we've taken time to be spiritual people and not just be consumed in television and internet and all this additional noise. I don't think that television and internet is bad. I don't think it's bad at all. However, I do feel like that we as a community of spiritual people, we could see so much greater depth to our spirituality and like amazing phenomenon happen if we could disconnect a little bit from the incessant chatter of television, movies, internet, our phones. I mean, my phone is glued to my hand all the damn time. If I'm going to be a better medium, a better witch, a better spiritual practitioner, I need to find time to disconnect.
Yeah,
and connect into a higher stream of consciousness, a higher stream of power.
Maybe you could invent the world's first mediumship app. I don't know, since you're already there.
I think it would be counterproductive, just to be perfectly honest with you, because the act of mediumship is a sensitive action. It does require a person, first of all, setting the intention in their mind that they're going to touch the spirit world. Second of all, that they are going to affirm the fact that they are already connected. It's just a matter of hearing. And then quieting the mind down enough to actually hear. So it can be done. if my ADHD self can do it, anybody can do it with the right amount of training.
True, very true. I don't know if you've heard. There's also this. It's just called the spirit box.
I've heard of it.
So it basically is something that people are using to electronic voice phenomenon. Sorry. They're basically using, I guess, the waves like white noise and stuff like that to go ahead and bring a certain spirit through that and ask them questions more physically. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't believe certain stuff, but like, is that something that you've touched into?
Yeah, I have. Well, I've been around this this spiritualistic paranormal world for pretty much my whole life, and I have worked with different paranormal research groups, so I've seen the different tools and things of that nature. I do not condemn the use of tools. I think tools are great. I think that it can kind of open the door, but a tool can only take you so far. And what I mean by that is one tool or multiple tools can only take you so far. Because we are spiritual beings, we have the ability to enter into that spiritual world from whence we came, and to whence we will go back to, and to whence we will come from again. So we will be able to go deeper than any spirit board. We'll be able to go deeper than any EVP meter, EVP phenomenon. We'll be able to go deeper than any of the electromagnetic meters or anything like that, because they are just picking up on the edges of that world. But because we are spirit, and if we can quiet our mind down and make the conscious effort to move into that world that is our home, that is our original place, that is where we're from, then we can definitely go deeper. I would equate using the use of tools, while they are great for like paranormal investigations and things like that, I would equate it to picking up a book and reading about Greece and thinking that you have experienced Greece, and you really haven't until you get into the plane and you go there. The tools are just the description. They just provide the description of the place. What we need to do as spiritual people is get into our vehicle and go.
And so how would you find your vehicle?
Well, you already have it. You already have it. And like I've been saying, because I believe mediumship is innate in every single person. It is intrinsically part of who you are. And it is intrinsically good. Every person, if they make the idea in their mind that I am going to reach out to the spirit world and I'm going to continue doing this until I touch in with spirit. When I first started meditating, I hated it because my grandmother would say, come on, let's go and meditate. And we would go and sit in this room for 30 minutes and nothing would happen. I wouldn't get anything. I would get a little frustrated because I would say, all we're doing is coming in here and sitting down. And my grandmother says, you're so close, it'll happen next time. You're so close, it'll happen next time. I can see all the spirits around you. You're so close, it'll happen next time. And then it did happen. And then I began to be able to kind of understand how that works. And I will give you kind of a little taste of how mediumship works. How it works is spirit uses your imagination. So an exercise that I give my students in Mediumship 101, when I'm teaching a Mediumship 101 class, I will say, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to sit in meditation across from each other. And I want you to begin to imagine the first images that pop into your head of an individual that is with the person that's right across from you.
Oh, what?
Just go with your first instinct. Is it man or is it male or female? Okay, great. You got that. Are they tall or short? Are they fat or thin? Now start at the top of the head. What kind of hair do they have? What kind of hairstyle? What color? Move down. Are they wearing eye makeup? Or what shape are their eyes? What color are their eyes? And you go with your first impression. And you describe them all the way down to their feet, the clothes that they're wearing, all of that. And then you begin to imagine more. How was this person's personality? You know, and essentially, quote unquote, create this person. Do you know about 7 out of every 10 times we get hits with students because Spirit uses your imagination. You are imagining it, but you're not making it up.
Oh, shoot. Dang. That's like, okay, I could see where I could sit down. Yep, you're right. I could definitely sit down because as you were talking about, imagine this, imagine that. I like bam, 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 hit, hit, hit.
Yeah. And when you go with your first impression and you don't second guess anything, you know, you will get something. Now, you may not get 100% every single time. You may not get, you may not get 100% where you've described a loved one 100% correctly. But you may have described them 50% or 30%. And I always tell my students, don't judge yourself by what you didn't hit. Mm-hmm. Accept the hits that you got. Accept the hits that you got and just realize that you are still learning to see what they are bringing through. You know, you're still learning. So, even if you get a 30% success rate on something like that, then you're doing well. And then you begin to ask questions. Once you get a clear picture of this entity in your mind, then you begin to ask questions like, what's your name? Or, are you associated with some type of, what are your initials? Can you give me pictures of things that are associated with you? And you'll be surprised how well you do. And so the Spirit is going to it will get better as you sit and you meditate. It will get better as you sit and you connect with the spirit world and allow the energies of the spirit world to mingle with your energy, and then allow those images to come through your imagination, because they're going to use that. Mm-hmm. And just realize that you're not making this up. You're just receiving the images that are coming through. It's almost like, if you were making it up, then I would say, okay, you already had a preconceived story to go with. No, but you're just allowing information to drop in, and you're just saying that information as it drops in. You're not giving any premeditation to it. You're not thinking about it beforehand. You're just allowing it to drop in, and people can accept what they can accept, and what they can't, they just kind of let it go.
Yeah, kind of like with tarot readings.
Right.
Interesting. Well, I mean, in closing, we're going to go ahead and end here in a sec, but in closing, is there anything that you wanted to add as part of a medium? Let's say there's somebody out there that wants to go ahead, or is in their path of mediumship. Like, what would you suggest as far as how to get in touch or what to do?
What I would encourage people to do, if they feel like that they are on the pathway to mediumship and they desire to connect with the spirit world and to really hone their craft as a spirit medium, connect with the local spiritualist church. And I say that because these people, since for more than 170 years, have been perfecting their craft of communicating with the spirit world. Also, their beliefs are broad enough that they can they're not dogmatic people. So there is no dogma. There are no set beliefs that you have to believe. They're just an open society of people that give people a space to touch in with spirit. And you can maybe join some local classes and kind of learn how to meditate and how to do development and things of that nature. I would also encourage picking up some books. There's some lovely books out there. There are two that I would recommend right off the top. The first one is by Raymond Buckland. It's the Red Book. It's Raymond Buckland's Complete Guide to Spirit Communication. So it's not the big blue book, but it's the big red book. And I would encourage people to pick, because it has exercises that they can use to kind of hone in on their skills. And to kind of learn things. If you don't feel like associating with a church or something like that, you can take Raymond's book and kind of work the exercises and teach yourself. He also has another book out there called The Seance, a Seance for One, or a Seance of One, teaching you how to do solitary sittings where you can kind of hear the spirit world. And then the other one is called We Do Not Die, A Skeptic's Guide to the Afterlife. And it is by, I'm sorry, her name just went out of my head, but it is We Do Not Die. She also has a famous podcast out there called We Do Not Die Radio. And she wrote a fantastic book. She was a total skeptic. And then when her dad died, she was able to actually make meaningful contact with her, and it has changed her life. So get in contact with a spiritualist church, or get in contact with some of these books that I named. Also, I'll provide my email address if anybody wants it. I'm always happy to talk and mentor.
Yeah, of course. I'll go ahead and post up those that information as well on how to get in touch with you. But that podcast actually sounds pretty sweet, considering I haven't heard of it. It says that one of the show's podcasts, the Sandra Champlain.
Sandra Champlain. That's who, I couldn't remember her name, but yes, that's who she is.
Okay, I found her. I'm going to go ahead and also post links on her podcast, because now I have to listen to that. I know I had on my list, but this one, from what I'm looking at, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, it looks pretty good on what I'm looking for on search. But again, it was wonderful to speak to you, and I will most definitely post those links to contact you. And in regards to We Do Not Die, the podcast, that's an amazing story to go ahead and hit. And I wanted to say thank you for doing this. You are an extraordinaire and very marvelous with your words.
Well, I appreciate it, Liz, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm excited to see where this podcast goes. I know it's going to do great things.
Thank you so much. If you ever want to come back, please come back, because I know there's like 10 million things with mediumship.
Oh, yeah. So you issue an invitation to me anytime. I will come back anytime.
You just said that. Okay, I got to make sure I have food now. All right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you again for listening. We appreciate everything. And again, you got questions or anything, let us know. Cody is more than willing to go ahead and answer.
A witchy box helps me while I'm on the go. At Ink Goddess Creations, Morgan has built boxes for adult witches and wee witches. Yes, for children. Every month she donates a portion of the sales, and you can also apply for wholesale for your business needs. Again, it's Ink Goddess Creations, and I'll go ahead and post links.